This is TWiT.
Ladies and gentlemen, time to head out into space on our recumbent bicycles. Mr. Rod Pyle is here. He's our spaceman, editor-in-chief of the Ad Astra magazine, the official magazine of the National Space Society at space.nss.org. He's also a prolific space author. I was just looking at the cover of Amazing Stories, and I didn't see at the top of it there, Rod Pyle. It says, True Tales of Nazis in Orbit.
Yeah.
That's link bait, isn't it? Soldiers on the moon, orphaned Martian robots, and other fascinating accounts from the annals of spaceflight.
So authors, as you know, because you've been one, we always come up with our title, right?
Yeah.
And then we submit some subtitle ideas to the publisher.
Yes.
And then they do what they want.
Yes.
And once that thing had been on the rack for a couple of weeks, I got a note back from the publisher saying, from now on, all your books have to have space Nazis in the title.
It's selling
that's
like
probably not a bad idea.
Crazy. It was chapter 1, after all.
Well, yeah.
But it's
a cool story.
it's of course, Werner von Braun and the Germans who came over. Our Germans are better than your Germans.
Yeah.
Who?
Jugendsanger was that chapter's mainly about, if I recall correctly, the Silverbird suborbital skip bomber that the Nazis were going to try and build.
That's right.
And,
there's Jugend.
The math worked and everything, had it gone perfectly, which it generally doesn't with spaceflight, could have potentially, Germany could have had a suborbital skip bomber that would have reached, there you've got a picture of it, would have reached from somewhere in the western edge of Europe to drop bombs on Manhattan.
Terrifying.
And it's interesting because people assume, well, they would have had to have a nuclear bomb to make that work. But from the altitudes they were talking about, a large bomb would have so much kinetic energy that it could have wiped out a big chunk of downtown
Even without
Manhattan.
Exploding, it'd just be like dropping an asteroid on
it's like dropping those big tungsten rods from orbit or something. So, that was a fun chapter to do. Kind of spooky. That and the German heat ray from orbit, that was the other one that I really enjoyed.
Amazing Stories of the Space Age, Rod Pyle, available better bookstores everywhere from Prometheus Books. There's your plug.
And even less better ones.
even some of the rattier downtown bookstores have it.
Yeah, used bookstores, you name it.
So what's up in space this week?
Well, we've had some interesting times on Mars here. I'll start with the Chinese rover, Zhurong. It's doing well. They've extended their mission past their first 90 days.
That's
great. On May 22nd.
I'm actually glad to hear that.
So it's I've been chatting with some folks at JPL about it, and they're impressed. They said it's hard to get something that size off of a lander, especially doing it the first time. And it's not a terribly ambitious mission, but for a first, it's very ambitious. So they've taken a lot of photographs. They rolled over and found their parachute and the back shell that came off of the lander, and have done some radar soundings and a bunch of photo surveys, but now it's moving on to its extended mission. So this could be another opportunity or spirit as it moves along.
Good.
And then Perseverance, as you probably know, had its first drilling attempt on.
They looking for oil?
Yeah. Well, they just want to see what the rocks are made out of and seal up those samples so we can bring them home in, we hope, a few years. And so everything was looking good, and the drill went in, and all the indications were that the pressure on the arm was right because it turns and hammers at the same time, right? Because it's trying to break up this rock to get it into the drill bit. And it's a core sampler, so it's about the size of a small cigar. And they brought it up, and they stuck the feeler indicator down the tube, and it was empty. They went, huh? So after a little head scratching, they figured out that the rock was so powdery that it just, as soon as they got done drilling and lifted the core drill up, it fell out. So they're going to go try another place. But, the more they do this, so if you remember with the InSight lander, they were going to hammer that mole probe down into the crust. They hoped to go down 15, 16, 18, 20 feet. And this was to measure heat coming out of Mars, because that's how you figure out how heat moves through the inner planet to the outer planet. And they banged on it. The thing had tested perfectly on Earth. So this is a long tube that's supposed to hammer down into the crust, and it just got down about, I think it was 5 or 6 feet, and then stopped. So they're finding out more and more that Martian dirt is just weird. You know, it's stickier. It's got issues with static electricity. It's got weird soil chemistry, and now it turns out parts of it are even more like talcum powder than talcum powder. So,
and
that didn't work, but they're going to try again.
This is also bad news for inhabiting Mars, right? Because it turns out this regolith is so fine of a powder it would be poisonous to us.
Well, that both on Mars and the moon, the dust has different properties, but because on the moon there's no weathering, so it's very sharp, so that's bad for your lungs. On Mars, it's very, very fine, almost the size of smoke particles, and also, as we've discussed, toxic because it's got perchlorates in it. So the soil offer, even the dirt in space hates us. So it's not bad enough the vacuum doesn't like us and there's radiation, there's all this other stuff, but now it's just coming down to dirt. So, if you think about being kids when we used to go out and, play in mud holes and make mud pies, and of course getting filthy was part of being a kid, you're not going to be doing that on other planets.
You're probably not even going to be planting potatoes, to be honest.
No, definitely won't be doing that.
Yep.
And the last thing on the Mars front is in early to mid-October, everything's got to shut down to a crawl for about 10 days because we reached Mars solar conjunction, which is when Mars and Earth are on opposite sides of the sun. So it's very hard to communicate. So the probes, depending on which program you're talking about, can still do some basic chores, but they basically kind of go into a very low performance mode.
It's not worth risking them doing stuff on their own if we can't monitor it.
Yeah, and towards the beginning and the end of that period, you can get some signals through, but you don't want to be big bandwidth.
They're always doing stuff on their own. I mean, it's so far away we can't control them robotically, but at least we can see what happened, 15 minutes later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. It's fun. I love it that we're just talking about, we're on Mars. The Chinese are on Mars. We're all just hanging out on Mars.
Well, and I was thinking about this the other day. You and I are probably going to live we're definitely going to live, knock wood, to see the return to the moon, but we're probably going to live to see people step on Mars. And for so many decades, that was like an impossibility in my mind.
It was the stuff of science fiction.
Yeah, and now I'm thinking, when that happens, what's that emotion going to be like? Is it going to be, oh my God, I can't believe we finally made it? Or is it going to be more like, well, of course Elon got there. I just wonder.
I wonder if Elon's going to send his new robots up there. They can sure dance. I don't know.
In spandex, yeah. So I guess the idea there is that they're human shaped, so they'll be able to use human
and of course tools. That's what Boston Dynamics has been doing for more than a decade. Now they've got robots that can dance. They can even do parkour. Elon says he's going to have robots that can do all sorts of stuff, and he's going to have them in a year. Well, we'll see.
Well, and I have to hand it to him. I mean, it's kind of a cool-looking thing, but he didn't go down that road that so many of the Japanese robot companies go down, which is all robots are 25 and female, So I tip of the hat to Elon for that. Speaking of Elon.
Yes?
Blue Origin has put their foot down the gas pedal again.
Jeff Bezos' space company, yes.
Yes, filed in the Federal Court of Claims, trying to get their piece of the lunar landing program because they're not happy. That
Elon won this battle without a bid.
Well, no, he bid. It was just a much lower bid than Blue Origin.
Oh, that's right. That's right. There was a bid.
Half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he outbid them.
He outbid them, and NASA came back months ago and said, look, we've only got enough money for one of you. Sorry, that's not how it's supposed to work, but that's all we can do.
Yeah.
And so they gave $2.9 billion is almost nothing. But Bezos is going to fight it to the ground.
See, this is a shame because let's all do it together. We don't need to fight over this. Leo Laporte.
Well, don't hang it up for months.
Yeah, exactly. The tech guy. Same thing's happening with Amazon and Microsoft over these military contracts. Amazon just got a $10 billion military contract with the National Security Agency, and Microsoft's suing, saying, no fair. Didn't it used to be that national security preempted your own petty little economic interest?
Yeah, and it's just, less so on the military side, but this isn't a good look for these guys. This isn't the kind of competition
childish.
admire.
It's the same thing as, I'm going to launch my rocket before you launch your rocket.
Well, but at least that is, I would consider, at least in this context, that to be a healthier form of competition. Just throwing stuff to the courts to drag it out for months and months, and this slows down anything that NASA and SpaceX are doing because they've got to park it until November.
So that's the real concern is
another legal challenge.
In fact, this is the Gizmodo headline. Jeff Bezos instigates potentially crushing delay of the NASA lunar lander. That is not a good look.
Yeah. What's the date? Is that in the last few days?
This one is, Friday.
I guess you could call it crushing. I mean, it's probably 6 weeks to a couple of months, unless, if the thing moves forward, then it could be crushing. But it's just so unnecessary. And once again, I mean, we've talked about this before. When you look at what SpaceX has done, they've flown to the space station over 20 times, if you include the cargo flights.
Yes, they deserve
and all
to
the
win
testing
this.
and all that stuff.
Yes.
And it's like, I love Blue Origin, but come on, guys. You've flown suborbital with people once, and your big rocket engines are behind schedule, and your rocket's late. Let's see something here.
This is straight out of the Silicon Valley evil genius playbook, which is if you can't win in the marketplace, beat them in the courts. And it's terrible. I hate it. I really do.
All that said, though, I do agree there should be competition, and I can understand. At least initially, I can understand the impetus behind, okay, look, we want to lodge a complaint here because we were told this is going to be multiple bids and multiple awards, and now it's just one. So you can see that there was some motivation there, but I think it's time to back out and just let it go on to the second round.
Yeah. All right, sir. Have a wonderful week. We will connect again next week. I hope your cold improves.
I'm sure it will. Thanks.
All right. Have a good one.
Take care.